Hello, everyone, and I am back for part 3 of my very unnecessary ranking of 100 more Victorian books. I hope that you are enjoying this, and let's get into book number 80, and that is The Invisible Man by H.G. Wells. Boy, was this book a roller coaster ride. So it started off, it feels like a Miss Marple book, where you are in this small, quaint village and kind of mysterious things are happening in the village. What ended up really making this book not a hit with me was the layout of it. So it starts in the middle of the book. And then our main character goes back to tell you how he became the Invisible Man. And anytime someone is telling me a story from the past, not anytime, there have been exceptions, but most of the time I feel like it kind of yanks me out of the narrative. And I'm like, why do we have to talk about the past? I want to be in the story. So I don't know why H.G. Wells even made that decision. I was enjoying it so much, and then all of a sudden we're going back to the past and it feels very disorienting. And then it cuts forward to the future. The Invisible Man himself, the character, I did not like him. I thought he was such a creep. And I know that, with science fiction, there are deeper meanings and messages being conveyed. So I don't think he was supposed to be this really winsome character, but I did not like him. I did not like him at all. So yeah, it was just the layout of this. I got really excited as it started. I was really enjoying the writing. I found it really gripping. So I have not given up on science fiction from H.G. Wells. I will try another one. Then the next one coming in at number 79, and that is Emily Bronte's poems. Now, before when I spoke about how I did not really get on with this collection, people said, well, have you tried reading it aloud? But I've had other poetry that I haven't read aloud that I've absolutely loved. So I don't think that's what it is. I think it's just, I am newer to reading poetry. And so I think maybe farther on in my life, I could feel like I got on more with it. But for now, I have other poetry that I love so much that you're going to see more highly ranked. And I just don't feel the need to kind of read this aloud if I have other poetry that I love so much. No Coward Soul Is Mine is still a poem that I very much love. I think it's just astoundingly beautiful. But there was a lot in here that I thought, I kind of wish I had the context for this poem. And I like poetry that is more straightforward and you can just kind of come to it and gain things from it. So I'm sure there are poetry readers out there that are judging me. But yeah, not unfortunately a hit with me. But still, like I said, No Coward Soul Is Mine, I really do love. And I think I marked a couple more. The night was dark, yet winter breathed. The starry night shall tidings bring. Anticipation and To Imagination were all ones that I have marked. So I did love some of them. So I will come back to this again at some point, and maybe I'll feel differently about it later on. Okay, coming in at number 78 is a Charlotte Mary Yonge, and this is Scenes and Characters. This was a group read with several friends that also enjoy the work of Charlotte Mary Yonge, and I think we all kind of came out of this being like, it wasn't her best work. The main character, I think, was very frustrating to all of us. And there just wasn't much that gripped me about the story, especially when I've read other books by her that I just feel so pulled in by. So yes, it was just a bit of a miss. Then the next one is The Runaway by Elizabeth Anna Hart. Have you ever had a story where kind of what the plot hinges on is just far too stressful for you to actually relax and get lost in the story? And that was the case for The Runaway for me. There is a child who is a runaway, and she ends up hiding out at this other girl's house who did not know her before this. And I kept the runaway child is really naughty. And I kept being so on edge for how much trouble she was going to get her host in. And so I just could not get lost in the story. And I didn't really find the character of the runaway very sympathetic, especially with what you find out at the end. Yes, so this, unfortunately, I did not like that much. But I will say it does have really cool illustrations by Gwen Raverat. So there is that. And it's one maybe in a few years I would want to come back to. It is so short. It is a children's book. So it wouldn't be hard to read again. Number 76 is Winifred of the Chalk Cliffs. This was quite a disappointment, a come down after Sabine Baring Gould's In the Roar of the Sea. I thought all of his were going to kind of knock it out of the park. And Winifred of the Chalk Cliffs, it does have some similar things going on to it that are in the Roar of the Sea. There's definitely this very ominous feeling throughout the novel. You're bracing for what is going to happen at the end. But now I'm thinking, and it feels, unfortunately, fairly forgettable as far as novels go. The setting is quite iconic with the Chalk Cliffs, but it just was not all that memorable of a novel. Number 75 was The Complete Fairytales by George MacDonald. This feels like the Emily Bronte poetry. I love fairy tales. But George MacDonald's feel quite cerebral and hard to make heads or tails of unnecessarily. And I can read Grimm's or some other fairy tales that I will get to on this list, and they just feel so lovely to read and so rewarding. So it was a frustrating collection for me to read. There's one that's in the collection that I'm counting as a separate book, and so we will see that. Then another George MacDonald for number 74, and that is At the Back of the North Wind. This didn't feel quite plotty enough for me. Stories where I like to have a sequential kind of events that happen, and this kind of felt like one fantastical thing after another, but they weren't really interconnected. It was a series of stories that our main character told, and there's another George MacDonald that I just love so much more. So we'll see that later on in the rankings. Number 73, The Hand of Ethelberta by Thomas Hardy. This one is a lot more lighthearted than his books, than many of his books. And I kind of felt safer going into it, but there just wasn't, I just came out of it like I couldn't be bothered to be interested in what was going to happen to the characters. It just, his books just feel unrelentingly cynical, and I'm just like, why can't a book be a lovely escape? Why can't this just be a lovely time away spent in a book? I don't know, it just wasn't a hit with me. And the main character of Ethelberta, I did not find her believable at all. I don't know. It wasn't a hit with me. Number 72, Willard's Weird by Mary Elizabeth Braddon. And this title, I remember looking up what a weird is because it's an older term. Let me just look it up. Okay, I just looked it up, and weird can mean fate or destiny. So essentially the title is Willard's Fate. This one, it has a really crazy beginning where there is a woman who either jumps or is thrown from a train. And so this book is going to be investigating whether she was murdered or whether she committed suicide. So quite an intriguing beginning. It did have some parts about it that I found interesting. Overall, though, the amount of characterization was a degree less than her novels that I have really loved. So I think plot is not quite enough for me. It had an interesting plot, but I didn't find the characters had the depth that I long for with, compared to some sensation novels that I have read that have both plot and depth in the characters. Okay, and then one of the most unusual books that I have read, coming in at number 71, and that is The Green Graves of Balgowrie by Jane Helen Findlater. This is a book that it was so unusual and so different. And so one thing I will say kind of in its favor is that it has left quite an impression, quite a memory on me. I can really vividly remember the story. It is just really unusual. So I now, kind of getting close to a year from reading it, I find myself appreciating it, but not so much that I enjoyed it. And I don't have to enjoy every book. So that is, that's some praise for me, that I find it to be a really memorable story and one that kind of haunted me a bit after I finished it. So it's not that I necessarily disliked it, even though it's 71 on the list. I didn't necessarily dislike it. It's just there's other books that I connected with more. So now thinking about it, it did leave a lasting impression on me. So I think it's one that definitely will be a candidate for a reread in the years to come. And I think is worth your time. This woman, two women, Henrietta and Lucy, that's what it is. They're brought up, their mother is just very strange. She's very strange, and they grow up very isolated, and then they meet someone new at the beginning of the book, and it kicks off this whole sequence of events. So it's a really unusual book. If you want something that's really different and stands out, this is one that you would want to try. Yeah, so I loved how different it was. Okay, that is part 3 of this unnecessary ranking of 100 more books. I hope that you are all enjoying this and having the most lovely Victober. And I'll be back with another ranking video very soon. Bye!